and enjoy Sunday Chat and Chew with Paula Burch Jackson and Tony Jackson. It is 11 o'clock, and so we're going to go ahead on and get started. Just wanted to talk about this time of year. This time of year, people tend to, it's the holiday season, and this time of year, people tend to get heavy. A spirit of heaviness seems to fall upon us, and especially if we've lost a loved one. I know for you, Shadrika, and for myself, these last couple of weeks has been hard because you lost your stepmother and you also lost your nephew. I lost my aunt, and then
this past week.
Yeah, she did.
Sorry, my condolences. Sorry to hear that.
So I lost my aunt, and also one of my daughter's friends lost his brother to gun violence. So it's been heavy, and whether you just recently lost someone or you've lost someone in the past, for whatever reason, the holiday season, we start to struggle and deal with depression. And so most of you know that I did write a book when I lost my first husband called the From Grief to Glory, Life After Death, From Grief to Glory, and it talked about principles that we can apply when we're dealing with grief and some things we can do. And I think that these principles helps in all stages of life. And so today I just want to talk about mastering this thing called life. And I'm going to share with you the Aeiou's, the vows of mastering life when things happen. At the end of the day, we would love to go through life as without any challenges, but that's just simply not realistic. And so the first thing that we must learn to do when life happens is we have to practice acceptance. The biggest challenges in life when we resist things that happen. We try to resist it. You can't resist it. When life happens, we have to accept that life is going to happen, and be willing to deal with it. Take the necessary steps that we need to do to move on. When we lose a loved one, I know it's hard, but we have to accept that death is inevitable. The Bible says that we are all appointed to die. In Hebrews 9:27, whoever is born will die. And so that is a universal law that we have to just accept it. And we have to understand that the shell dies. Spirit lives on. And we have to understand what that means. Again, when God breathed life into Adam, that's when Adam became a living soul. And when we take our last breath, that's God bringing us back into himself. So spirit continues to live on. The shell may die, but like the songwriter says, that we go to a building not made with hands. We go back to our Creator. So we have to be okay in that peace. And I always, I'm tripping out of Christianity because we all talk about this place called heaven, where we always want to go to afterlife, but nobody wants to die, or their loved one to die to get there. And if we believe the Bible, then death is the only way that you move from this side, this immortal, to to live with Christ again in a new glorified body. So in order to master this thing called life, the AEIO of life, you have to accept that life will happen. Encouragement. The second step in mastering this thing called life is you must learn to encourage yourself. And that is the truth. As I mentioned earlier, death is inevitable. And so we have to, in 1 Samuel 30:6, David found himself in the midst of a bad place. He was very discouraged, and he turned to his friends, and his friends simply was not there. So the Bible says that David learned to encourage himself. Self-encouragement is the greatest gift. That's the thing that's going to really get you through. Because sometimes people mean well, and they're saying things that they think will help, but sometimes the thing they're saying really makes your situation worse. It puts you in a deeper state of discouragement. So you have to figure out what encouraged me and start encouraging yourself in the Lord. I started listening to music or just doing different things that I enjoy doing. I love nature. I love looking at trees and the colors of trees. And sometimes this is a perfect time to go take a nature walk because it's not too hot, not too cold. And the trees, the scenery is simply beautiful if it's not raining. So that may be something that you can do to encourage yourself. The of the AEIOUs of mastering this thing called life is inspiration. The definition of inspiration is the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something creative. You know, sometimes I write my best poetry when I'm going through something. And sometimes especially when I'm upset or depressed or feeling something, I can just write whatever I'm feeling. And one day I was literally sitting in church after Robert had died, and I was just there in body, but not, in spirit. And so I just began to write in journal, and I wrote three of my most powerful poems sitting right there in that space that I was in because I was so heavy, so depressed. So I began to write, and that inspired me. And so when life happens, focus your attention on things that inspire you. Don't spend time focusing on things that's making how you feel worse. Sometimes, especially if it's a loss of a loved one, we may start going through photo albums. Now, if those photos of your memories are inspiring you, then yeah, keep turning the page of those photos. But if they're making you feel sadder, then close that book. Now is not the time for you to look at that. Rather, go look at something that's inspiring. For Shadrika, she's a new grandmother. So yesterday, after she left one funeral, she went and stopped by to visit her grandbaby. And those little lives, they are very inspiring. So I know that made you feel better. It lifted your spirit because now you get to focus on this little bundle of joy that you get to call, what you gonna call you, grandma, mima, whatever. Us new grandmothers don't like to be called grandmother. The O, so we said the A in mastering this thing called life is acceptance. Accepting that life will happen. E is encouraging. Learn to encourage yourself. I is inspiration. Focus your attention on things that bring you joy, things that make you happy, things that inspire you. The O, I say this every week, is being open-minded. There's a quote that I read from this guy named Henry Bergeson. It says, the eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend. Oh man, just marinate on that. The eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend. So when you're going through something and you want to get through those storms of life, sometimes you have to do something different to get something different. But you have to open your mind to receive that something different. So you have to open your mind to new ideas so that you're set your eyes on things and change your mind so that you can receive whatever the new thing that God is getting ready to take you through. Because when life happens, there's still purpose in it. We talked about that last, but there's purpose in the situation that you're going through. But you have to be open-minded. You have to open your mind so that you can see and feel and understand and grasp that thing that God is trying to take you to. The U is understanding. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. So the final stage in mastering this thing called life is to trust God to guide you through the things that you simply do not understand. Now, I'm the type of person you'll hear me say often, life just got to make sense to me. I just got to understand it. But the truth of the matter is there are some things that happens in this thing called life that I simply don't understand. And it's okay. I know that even though I don't understand, God knows He understands. He understands the purpose in that thing. And so sometimes I have to, going back to the very first A, acceptance. I have to accept there are sometimes going to be things that I don't understand. I have to be okay with the things that I don't understand, and knowing that God has a bigger plan than Paula, and so He's going to be able to help me master through that. So recapping before I go on to part 2 of what I'm going to discuss about, I just covered mastering this thing called life, and I talked about the AEIOUs of mastering this thing called life, and I said that the A is acceptance. Now I'm going to engage my husband if he wants to talk a little bit. We talked about this a little bit, and he said he wanted to practice, but sometimes the Bible says to be always ready, right? So Tony, when I talk about being on the place of accepting the things when life happens, what does that say to you?
I mean, I guess the biggest issue that we run into is not accepting what is, as you were saying. So being resistant to what is, and learning to not to resist. So losing a loved one, fortunately I've not been in that situation where I've lost someone that's in my immediate family like you and Shadrika have experienced. But I think in life, just learning to accept the things and to get yourself in a place where you can sit and meditate and reflect on the goodness or the good things that you've had in those relationships.
Absolutely. So the A again for the AEIOU is accepting that life will happen. And so I think if we start to condition our minds right now to understand that life is going to happen, and pray every day. Don't wait until something happens to try to prepare for life happening. Just start conditioning your mind. If you have some older relatives, my father was one of 13, and we're down to 6. And we went to my aunt's homegoing ceremony on yesterday, and I saw some of my aunts and uncles, and I'm just looking at them, remembering how vibrant they were when we were little, and just to see that they're slowing down, and seeing the gray hairs and even though I got a few myself, but seeing the walking with the cane and just not moving with the same resilience that they had when I was much younger, and just accepting, wow, my loved ones are getting older, and I know that not only will their time here not be much longer, but I think the reality is neither will mine. We don't know when the sun will go down, so we have to start preparing ourselves that life is going to happen. Life could be death. Life could be anything. It could be laying off from a job. It's going to happen. Stuff is going to prepare. So what are you doing today to prepare for your tomorrow? What are you doing today to prepare for those things that you can't control, so that you can accept that when life happens, you know what, I'm prepared that. And all of that starts in preparing your mind and strengthening your mind. Focusing on what you're paying attention to, what you're paying attention to. I've talked about that. Understanding that everything that happens in our life and how we experience is influenced by our eye gates or our ear gates. What are we looking at? What are we listening to? If you're not strengthening yourself with stuff that's going to build you up and make you strong so that you can accept the things when life happens, then I'm telling you, you're setting yourself up for failure. Some TV shows I just cannot watch. My husband says I like the girly shows, the stuff that promotes love. Yeah, I'm a Hallmark fan, that I am. I used to be a Lifetime fan, but I noticed that on Lifetime, all they were doing is a bunch of women killing their husbands, and or vice versa. I'm like, why am I feeding my spirit with that? Is that building me up, or is it tearing me down? Is it keeping me stagnated? So in order for you to accept when life happens, you got to start building yourself up today and preparing for life to happen. The E is encouragement. Again, encouraging yourself in the Lord. When life happens, encourage yourself. Start encouraging yourself, practicing encouraging yourself today. Inspiration, focus your attention on the things that bring you joy. Focus your attention on the things that make you happy. Being open-minded when life happens. I say every day, be open to everything and attached to nothing. And then understanding, trusting that God is God. Trust in the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and lean not on your own understanding, but in all of your ways acknowledge God. I promise you, he will direct your path. And so that again, as a recap, was the AEIOUs of mastering this thing called life. Acceptance, encouragement, inspiration, open-minded, and understanding. Now, once life happened and we find ourselves in those valleys, some of us, like I said, it's the holiday season, you're going to have to decide. You're going to have to decide today that I am not going to stay in this low place. I'm not going to allow myself to get depressed because my loved one has maybe transitioned. I'm not going to allow myself to be depressed because I don't have the money in the bank that I would like to spend on Christmas. I'm not going to allow myself to be depressed because I can't do all the things that I want to do today. Okay, accept that fact. So when situations happen in this thing called life that you can't understand, and you've went through the AEIOs, you've accepted it, you've encouraged yourself, you inspired yourself, you're open-minded, and you're understanding that life will happen, but you're still feeling some kind of way, you're still feeling heavy, you're still feeling depressed, the next step is to take action, right?
Right.
So Tony, talk about where we talk about taking action from. Where do we get that concept from?
So when we took the discipleship class called Master Life, I'm smiling because I'm thinking, I keep looking at this acceptance thing, and I want folks out there that's watching and you to accept that I'm good sitting here with my wife and supporting you and going through this your process. But so getting back to action. Action.
I just wanted to say where we got the concept from.
It's Master Life,
Yeah.
a discipleship course where we met over at Berean. It just gives you an opportunity to go through, or gives you a roadmap of getting through your emotional experience, or when you're going through something, while you're feeling these emotions, to help you to work your way through the process.
Awesome.
Which I think is a good acronym, and it's a great way
to remember it, right?
Yeah.
So you find yourself in a situation when you find yourself feeling emotion, when you find yourself feeling anything other than pure joy, than love, I want you to learn how to just simply take action. The A in action is to acknowledge the emotion, to acknowledge what you're feeling. If it's pain, acknowledge the pain.
Sadness.
If it's sadness, if it's anything other than love, acknowledge I am feeling sad. Acknowledge I'm feeling grief. Well, consider, the C is consider why am I having. Well, why am I feeling this heaviness? Sometimes I find myself in a situation and I just have the worst attitude. I'm short. Find myself feeling in depression. And when I consider what I'm having, sometimes I have to stop and say, what's today's date? And I notice that there are trigger dates. There are some things that's happened. It may be May 27th. May 27th is Robert actually transitioned. And I don't even realize sometimes that I have internalized that date, but psychologically, that date, the very date, sometimes is impacting my behavior. And so when I acknowledge that I'm feeling kind of depressed, then I consider why I'm having it. I think about what's going on in my life. What is the date? What happened on this day? Why? What have I internalized? I consider why I'm having it. Then I have to consent to let it go. Once I figure out, this is May 27th, I have to say, ooh, I can't change what happened May 27, 2006. So I have to consent to accept that it happened and to acknowledge that I can move from it, that I don't have to stay in this place. So I give myself permission to be okay. I give myself permission to be in a happy place. I consent to let that go. That doesn't change how I felt about life back then, but it's a new day. I have a new husband. I have to consent to let that go so that I can continue to move forward. Then I have to tell myself sometimes it's okay. The T is tell yourself it's okay to let it go. Sometimes when people pass away, especially at this time of year with the holiday, and we're having a happy moment, sometimes we seem to feel guilty for being happy in our life today. Well, why? Tell yourself it's okay to be happy even though your loved one is no longer here. Tell yourself it is okay to be happy even if I don't know how I'm going to pay for my children's Christmas, if that's the situation that you're in. Whatever's keeping you from feeling anything other than pure love and joy, tell yourself it's okay to be happy. It's okay to feel good about your life. Tell yourself it's okay to love you. It's okay. Sometimes people will say mistake confidence for arrogance. Guess what? If you don't tell yourself that you're beautiful, if you don't tell yourself that you're okay, don't expect nobody else to do it. And if people are offended because you're doing it, that's because they haven't told themselves that. Earlier this
week.
Can
I say something?
Absolutely, you can.
When you were saying it's okay to tell yourself that you love yourself, I was listening to a broadcast earlier in the week, and the lady was saying that you got to love yourself first before you can love anybody else.
Absolutely.
So if somebody considers that when you're very confident and like being with you, if they're offended by that, then you've got to be able to move on, because if you don't love yourself first and you don't have that confidence in yourself first, or that cockiness, then it's hard for you to give that to somebody else.
Amen. Amen. So after you tell yourself to let it go, thank God. Be thankful in everything. The other T, A, action, acknowledge emotions. C, consider why you're having it. Consent to let it go. T, tell yourself it's okay to let it go. And then thank God for giving you the courage, the strength, the boldness to be okay with you, to be okay in your own space. Thank God for helping you to understand what that emotion is. And then I identify positive affirmation or a scripture or anything that's positive that's going to help you deal with that space that you're in. I love affirmation. I have a lot of affirmation around this room that we're in because I love encouraging molding myself. And one of my favorite one is, I'm looking at it, life is like a camera. Focus on what is important. Capture the good times. Develop from the negative. And if things don't work out, take another shot. Isn't that powerful? I'm going to read that one more time. Life is like a camera. Focus on what is important. Capture the good times. Develop from the negative. And if things don't work out, take another shot. So during this season, when you're finding yourself in those emotional roller coasters, remember, life is like a camera. And you can always take another shot. So you're going to identify positive affirmation and then identify the strength that you gain from those certain situations. Every time you go through something, you're going to find out that it's making you stronger. Find out what strength, what did I gain from this experience? What did I gain? How did this make me stronger? How did this make me wiser? Identify the good that came out of that situation. I promise you, in everything that happens in life, something is good in it. My favorite scripture that you should know by now is Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God. So there is something good that's working for my good, regardless of what situation I find myself in. Oh, we got to own our own emotion. We got to own it, and then we got to release it. How do you own? See, a lot of times we have the blame game, and we're going through something. We find everybody to blame other than ourselves. Polly, I'm feeling like this because he. No, I'm feeling like this because of me. So I have to own my own space, own how I'm feeling in this situation, and don't point fingers at anybody else. Because everything we're doing is a self check. So I'm gonna own it, and then I'm gonna obey that inner knowing. Because when I'm honest with myself, when I'm truthful with myself, God is always speaking to me. I call it that yet still small voice. That voice that we sometimes tend to ignore, that inner knowing, that small voice, that voice of God that tells you this is what's going on with you, this is what you need to move from it. Own it and then obey what God is saying. And then finally, we've got to nullify every thought that wants to keep us connected to that place of pain. We have to nullify this negative thought that comes in my mind to tell me it's okay to stay here. Nullify that negative thought that wants to keep me in that place of depression. Those thoughts that says that you should feel that way. Those thoughts that says that nobody understands. Nullify all those negative thoughts. The Bible says to cast it down. And then we have to learn to nurture that emotion with love. It's okay to feel how you're feeling. Nurture with love. Nurture love on yourself. Earlier this week, I was sharing with another business partner of mine in Keller Williams. And when I came into the office, we share offices, and she was saying to me, she was so glad to see me, and she was asking me if I would be her mentor and her coach. Now, it always blows my mind, don't know why, but it does. It blows my mind when people come to me and say, oh my God, I just want you to mentor me. I want you to mentor me. And so, especially with someone who I haven't known very long, I always ask, and I asked her this question. I said, so tell me what it is that you see when you look at me. Man, her eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. She was so excited. And when I tell you, she made me feel great about myself because she had all of these wonderful things that she picked up from me from afar. Because like I said, we're not in each other's space. We don't hang out or anything like that. But from afar, she saw all of these wonderful things. And I told her, that was so cool. I said, now say those things again. And this time when you say it, end it with, when I look at you, I see me. That frightened her. But see, let me just tell you something. When you see good things in other people, the only reason you can identify what's good in other people is because that good is also in you. We don't like to focus on that aspect of it. Now with kids, I remember when my children was growing up and I would see these negative characteristics they would have, and I'd be like, oh my God. One day Trey and Sheena was having an argument, and Sheena was standing over Trey, and she was pointing her finger at him and rolling his neck, and he was sitting down there acting like he didn't hear a word she was saying. And me and Robert was laughing because we recognized that was a mini Paula and Robert. They were acting like us, and so we captured that. But then there are some characteristics that my kids have that is great. That's also representative of me. But I wasn't focused on the good that they gained from me. I was focusing on that and the negative traits that they picked up from me. But then I start seeing the only reason I can recognize good in other people is because that same good is inside of me. And the only reason I can likewise, the negative is because that's inside of me. And so when you see somebody that they just inspire you, and you see these wonderful characteristics, I promise you that same trait is within you. So you have to pray and ask God to reveal it, to show it, to have it to surface to the top, so that you can start feeling good about yourself too. So that the things that person that you admire is doing, you can begin to do them because you'll see that you can. Well, that has been Paula's Sunday Chat and Chew. I promise not to stay on here long. And so I hope that something that I have said has inspired and motivates you real quick, because I really want you to hold on to this stuff, because it is the holiday season, and I don't want you to stay on a place of defeat. So I want you to grab the AEIOUs of mastering life when it happens. A for A is acceptance. E, encouragement. Encourage yourself in the Lord. A, accept that it will happen. I, inspiration. Focus your attention on things that bring you joy, things that make you happy. O, stay open-minded. Keep your mind open to everything and attached to nothing. U, understanding, knowing that God understands. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And then once you've gotten down the AEIOUs of mastering this thing called life, take action. A, acknowledge the emotion. C, consider why you're having it. T, tell yourself it's okay to let it go. I, identify positive affirmations and also identify strength gains from that. O, own your emotion and then obey your inner knowing, obey the voice of God to move through it. N, nullify any negative emotion that wants to keep you glued to that negative feeling. And N, nurture that emotion with love. Paula Burks Jackson with a Sunday Chat and Chew, mastering this thing called life. If this video has been a blessing to you, please share it. Feel free to share it with your friends, your family, or anyone that may find themselves in a low place on today. And I pray that this word will lift you up. For those who said yes to the mastermind session that begins tonight, I am super excited about that. I will see you tonight at 7 on the live video chat. Make it a great day. Love you, love you, love you. Bye-bye.